Joel Hirschberg is the owner and president of Green Building Supply. At the Natural Living Expo, he is giving a workshop on eco-friendly flooring and countertops. He's going to review the best green flooring and countertops with tips on how to understand their labels and read between the lines of their claims. These are some samples that he just handed out to the audience. Look here.
Different standards that are used by different organizations in different countries. Now, the OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety Hazards Administration, they require the minimum to be 0.75 parts per million of formaldehyde. That's their bottom line. Yet the ANSI is 0.3 and the German E1 is 0.1. And you go down the list and you can see that there's a lot of differences in what people consider safe, depending on which standard you use. So just because someone says we are following government standards doesn't necessarily mean that it is safe. The reason we show this is because a lot of people are used to hearing about green claims of being green, and there are many companies who falsely advertise, or they don't necessarily do it intentionally, but their claims might be a little bit exaggerated.
Breath of life, and so I think that's a pretty fantastic title to describe a fantastic phenomenon of the wind industry in the Iowa area. I spoke with a wind developer in the Des Moines area. He works with several utilities on installations of wind turbine farms in Iowa. He did not want to speak on camera. He asked not to be named, but he gave me quite a lot of information that he was willing to share with you via me. So I'm excited. I learned so much from him. I asked him about China's effect on trade and the economic vitality of wind energy in the United States. According to him, he said that China can afford to produce, manufacture, and supply wind turbine parts much more cheaply than the United States. It's only a matter of time before China invades the U.S. wind market, the market share, by selling wind energy parts to supply our wind farms. He said that that's similar to what happened in the 70s and 80s with U.S. car manufacturing. So we did just talk about Detroit and their manufacturing. They're switching to renewable energy. And so that kind of shows how circular our universe is. So what happened in the late 70s and 80s with U.S. car manufacturing is that it became more affordable to import cars from Asian markets because of cheaper price, and from European markets because of better quality. This means that the United States still has not learned lessons from that time. In fact, that wind turbines manufactured in Germany are considered the BMW or Cadillac of the wind industry. Wind turbines manufactured in Spain or Asia are considered the Buick of the wind industry. Wind turbines manufactured in the United States, particularly by GE or General Electric, which is a major manufacturer of wind turbine parts in the United States, are considered the Chevys of the wind industry. The price is higher, the quality is not as good. So if a wind farm is looking for cheap parts, they'll look to China for those cheap parts. If a wind farm is looking for high quality, they'll look to Europe for those parts. So there's no reason for them to look for those parts in the United States. It's, one or the other. They have markets that they can go to. And that's something that we should really think about in a very profound way. We're repeating history. It seems that we haven't learned from our history, so it looks like we're about to repeat it. Although hopefully it's still young enough, the whole concept of wind, that we can reverse that trend if we put our minds to it. But overall, due to China's activities, the cost and price of energy has fallen in Iowa, which creates another kind of problem. I asked the wind developer about nuclear energy. He did say that support for nuclear energy dominates both parties of the United States, although there's kind of maybe a tentative trend away from that. Tentative. China is reviewing its existing plants, moving to implement tighter safety protocols. The United States is not. Once again, China's future focus on energy has advanced past that of the United States. And then I just read that article about Germany doing a full 180, full stop on its nuclear energy, particularly because it was forced to by its own citizens. But we've seen from what I just read and then what has been discussed in general about energy policy that United States is not the world leader in renewable energy or clean technology, although once upon a time it was. Now it's not. Today the United States is a follower on energy policy, and not only that, they're falling further behind, which is a shame. I asked the developer about the procedures for developing a wind farm, just in case I wanted to someday. He did say that locations have to be scouted very carefully, and that means wind maps, which are publicly accessible, have to be examined very closely in terms of land ownership, the environmental issues, and then also zoning issues as well. There's many parts, many moving parts. There has to be an examination for the capacity of construction, and then also timelines. And so once upon a time the process was more streamlined, but now there is greater awareness of the effect of wind on the environment. And then I also mentioned earlier the importance of land use and zoning. And so there are lots of T's to cross and lots of I's to dot in creating and constructing a wind farm. So this local wind developer has been very successful at completing these tasks, and I asked them why. He responded to me that it was due to integrity, meaning that they say what they mean what they say, and that they perform at the highest percentage of their capacity as possible to get the job done. That not everyone does, but they do. We also discussed NIMBY issues, not in my backyard. Whether transporting nuclear reactor parts or 450-foot wind turbines. And we saw from that photo just how large those turbines are. The developer must make efforts to overcome resistance. We looked at some photographs and even artistic recreations or renditions of wind turbines as they exist here in the state of Iowa. And what I saw from those photographs when I looked at them, that they usually show the turbines with traditional electric power lines running alongside and poles and lights in the foreground. And then silos and water towers in the background. So these power lines and silos and then corn silos and then water towers are part of the landscape here in Iowa, but they've been around for so long that they kind of blend in, whereas wind turbines are a little bit more of a shock to the eye. And so there's a not in my backyard concept. The old style wind turbines that we've seen pictures of along the prairies had a wider base and smaller blades. However, the new style wind turbines have a smaller base and then longer blades, so in a sort of optical illusion, they actually appear smaller in the distance. But then there's the rotating lights and subsonic sounds if the blades on a farm line up a certain way, that they may have an effect. And so that's still things, part of the engineering, part of the planning, part of the construction that have to be considered. But I've seen some improvements myself in terms of glare and taking consideration of the bird population and the bat population too.